Mic. Camera. Action.
Okay. Now, the day that you had the accident.
That was a special day.
Yes, it was. I was running late.
How convenient.
I was on my way to meet Fran and our wedding planner, which you turned out to be. What are the odds?
Dance! Dance!
Don't dance around the issue. You didn't show that day because you don't want to get married. I see it all the time.
You see what?
Why'd you tell your fiance you saved an old lady? Exactly. You think you want to get married, but you don't. You're just pitiful and confused looking to get some hot pepper wherever you can.
Mary, you have no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Then why did you go to the movies with me?
Why did Steve go to the movies with you? Well, let's see. First of all, Steve likes the movies. Steve had the night off. Steve said, hey, you know what? A movie sounds good. Plus, he got an invitation.
Why is Steve referring to himself in the third person?
What are you talking about?
You think you can double talk your way out of this? Throw me off your scent? But I smell you.
And I smell like sweetbread plums and grilled cheese sandwiches.
What?
Yes. That's what you said to me in the street right before you passed out.
I did not.
You did too. I had to say, if you want to look at the good some, it's M-A-R-Y.
Oh, you're hideous.
All right. Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the Focus Filmography and consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's returning guests are the hosts of This American Wife podcast, Tim and Amber. Today's film is Adam Shankman's The Wedding Planner from 2001. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for coming back on and joining me for this, quite momentous moment in McConaughey's career, because this is it. This is the official opening of the rom-com era.
Oh, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, McConaughey sort of reflects this not being his favorite part, doesn't it? But
yeah, we're glad to be back and to talk about it, though.
Yeah, and it's a different vibe from what we discussed last time with racism and murder and things.
Murder, no. I think arguably we might have to talk about this being a slightly racist movie.
Oh, let's get into it.
Maybe not racist, but certainly kind of very stereotypical in its view of nations and how they talk and behave.
Yeah.
I don't know why we can't just cast people from those countries. Let's start there, and we'll circle back around when we get to Massimo, because he is.
Oh, please do circle back to this. Yes, because I was
needs to be a topic point.
Completely confused by that. Indeed.
So, do we want to go good or bad? Because I have good thoughts.
I think let's talk about both. I don't think we need to slate this movie. There are some points that I think are worth talking about and celebrating, and I think it is important to reflect how monumental, I think I've used that word twice now already, this kind of starting portion for his career McConaughey was. He might look back on it with kind of ill feelings now, which I think is a shame, because there's a lot of people that really enjoy this segment of his career.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of movies which really helped him kind of gain fame and notoriety, and probably did help lead on to some of the more celebrated roles later on, because you don't often get those unless, they're films which require quite a lot of funding normally. And, he's a name which then gets that funding for those kind of parts.
Yeah, I think it must have been hard for him because he knew this. He wasn't the one they would have picked for it. They had originally picked, who was it, Brendan Fraser?
Yeah, and Freddie Prinze Jr. People just kept passing on this role. So
that must have been hard for him going in, knowing, okay, well, I wasn't the first choice, but I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to appreciate and admire his hard work ethic that he put into it. Because you're right, this did start this like saga of rom-coms for him. And as a woman, I loved that era. It wasn't his best. This is not the best rom-com. It's terribly written, in my personal opinion. But I do think he did his best with it. I mean, he came on smiling and charming as ever in the first third of this film. We talked about that.
I think you could divide this in thirds. And the first third is, well, I mean, get into it as you wish, but I think the first third is McConaughey showing why he's there, and then the next two are wondering why he's there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a while before he appears. I actually thought, I'll clock this, because it felt like it was dragging on a bit. And that's no slight on Jennifer Lopez either. I think she's perfectly charismatic and charming in this movie as well. I think they're both doing a good job in two very poorly written characters with really serious character flaws, fatal flaws at the center of who they are as people. But I think those two
have in my notes fatal flaw. Yeah, fatal flaw is literally written in my notes because that's the best way to call it.
It is, isn't it? It's that both of them really are unlikable as characters, but they've cast two very charming, charismatic, likable people in the roles. It's really kind of does its best to sell even, the amount of quality that I think maybe it feels like at this point, Amber and I may be leaning on slightly on one side of the fence compared to you, Tim. I'm not sure, we'll see as we go, but I feel more negatively, but I think they're the two bright spots in their performances.
Yeah, I just think he just finished U-571. That was kind of a deeper film for him, so you could tell this was kind of a nice
submarine pun. Lovely.
Yeah, this is kind of a nice breather film for him, is what I would term it as. And something I really admired was there was a scene in there where they did a tango. And as someone with a dance background, I really admired that, because that takes a lot of hard work to get the steps down, plus add in dialogue, plus add in the charm, add in eye contact. That must have been a really hard scene for him to film, and I think that showed how hard he was willing to put his all into it. It was very choreographed. The dance in the park was choreographed. Like, there's lots of physical acting.
Yeah, I mean, there's extra skills there, I think, that he had to bring to the table. And Texans, as far as I know them, are not afraid to dance. You're quite happy to... dancing is a real social activity. But you're right, that to choreograph that while being filmed is probably took longer to film that one scene than some of the others in the film. So I liked that aspect of it. I thought he did a really good job of bringing his best to it, but also the fact that I think the writers kind of wanted to bring this show tune old Broadway kind of feel to some of the scenes. And I liked that. Like, there was dancing in the park. They just randomly started dancing with an old movie on. I thought that kind of appealed to the show tune Broadway in me a little bit. And the director, I suppose, Adam Shankman's a big fan of that kind of thing. So I think maybe he was a little bit shackled as well. And again, we can come back to that as well, that this is his first feature film. Maybe he's finding his feet. This is not his natural habitat either. And maybe that's why it feels a little uneasy.
Yeah, it's interesting. That scene is probably the two scenes you're talking about. I'll circle back round to the tangoing scene, because there's an interesting thing I want to talk about there. Yeah, but that opening scene, I had to look it up. I didn't know the movie that was playing, to be fair. I think it's called 2 Tickets to Broadway. And it definitely, this film wants to be a quote unquote modern, because obviously 2001, it's over 20 years old now, but a modern take on that kind of screwball comedy style, doesn't it? It has that kind of outlandish humor, and I think we'll talk about the level of exaggerated acting on show at times, but I think that's a really fair shout, that it wants to be kind of and which is interesting, because U-571 was the same. It almost kind of wants to be echoing back to that style of movie. It wants to be as you said, like a Broadway show tuney without any singing, obviously. But yeah, definitely that's what it's drawing upon, isn't it? And in terms of that tango scene, I actually bought the DVD of this, luckily only for £1. Even now, I'm wondering if it's money well spent or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it came with a little special feature, which was called The Dancer and the Cowboy. And it was a comparison of that dancing scene you've been talking about, Amber, and then obviously the scene when he has to rescue her on the horse. And how for the two of them, they were the two hardest scenes. For McConaughey, it was exactly what you said, to be able to remember the dance steps and the dialogue and deliver a sense of kind of emotion. He found really difficult because he wanted to do all three correctly. And I can imagine that it's like spinning 3 plates. It's doing 3 different skills at once. It's tough. And then for her, it was there no experiences on a horse. Jenny from the block. I guess they didn't have many horse riding opportunities on the block, so she found that really difficult. Whereas he was in his natural habitat, so it was interesting. It's just like a little 5-minute feature, but thinking about there are these moments when actors have to kind of overcome these perceived difficulties we wouldn't think about, and they both sell those 2 moments really naturally. To be fair to them.
Yeah. I liked that. I liked that they, wasn't the best movie of the decade, but they put their all into it, I think.
And I think that's fascinating that they made that a feature on the DVD, that they wanted to highlight that. But I wonder whether they realized that in the moment, that maybe a more skilled and experienced director would go, actually, you know what? We could slightly rework these scenes to highlight that she's much happier on the dance floor than he is, or that he's much happier on a horse than she is. Yes, he's the one that chases after, and there was a moment where I thought maybe he is doing a little bit more of his horse riding than she is. But if you really rework those scenes in a way, you could have made them both more convincing and therefore highlighted the actor's strengths rather than trying to downplay perceived weaknesses on each part.
Now that's interesting, because I think that's not something I've thought of, but I like that idea of like kind of spontaneity, kind of improv around who we've got available to us. Now we've ended up with J-Lo and McConaughey instead of J Love and Frasier and Freddie Prinze and Sarah Michelle Gellar. Yeah, I like that idea, because it feels like there's other moments, doesn't it? I mean, Jennifer Lopez's character being of Italian heritage. Well, that's an original script thing, right? You've got Jennifer Lopez now. Just change it. Just change it to she's Puerto Rican, right? I believe, is that right? That's her heritage. So just change it to that. Like, who cares?
Then you've got to let other people go. So then you've got to let Alex Rocco go, and they want to have Alex Rocco.
Is he vital? I don't know much about Alex Rocco. Is he a guy who's going to bring in a lot of audience?
Well, he was in The Godfather, so he's got like Italian heritage there. But you're right. That's not someone that fans of The Godfather are going to flock out to see The Wedding Planner. But you maybe think, is that someone that they cast? They didn't want to let go because they'd written it in the original script and they wanted to keep that plan. But you're absolutely right. Why on earth do you not just change it to her being Hispanic and the family being Hispanic? It's the same immigrant story would still apply in almost every way.
Yeah,
apart from the pasta scenes, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't play into the plot, does it, at any point? And as you said, the dancing or the horse riding, a little bit with the horse riding, not so much the dancing, because there's a throwaway line about how he used to go to dance classes with his mum, isn't there? But these are opportunities, I think, that do feel missed. I agree. To add some depth to the characters a bit.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think I read that they originally wanted it to be Armenian. They wanted the family to be Armenian, but that it wasn't like classed as being popular for the audience.
Right. So where's Armenia?
Shift, which is likely what you said. It's a little racist in itself, but it's of the time period. If we're going back in time, we've had this paradigm shift of culture, haven't we? We're more self-aware now.
And I suppose Italian sounds exotic and fancy and everyone wants to go to Italy. And it does allow you to put a Vespa in the film, which again, this feels like something that they should dial into and lean into, rather than just he's on a Vespa. You could have had so much more fun with a Vespa. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's totally fair. I mean, I think just before we move on too much from that that dancing scene, I think that was a moment where we could see the chemistry between the two of them. You know, up until this point, I think Jennifer Lopez was considered, you know, a successful, serious actress, wasn't it? This is kind of the point, I think, where she becomes bigger than that. She becomes J-Lo. She becomes a global figure. I mean, I'm sure at some point we'll talk about like the success she was particularly having around this era. But I think she was, for me, looking back, you know, renowned for having good chemistry with their co-stars. You know, Out of Sight is always my example of two actors with the best chemistry pretty much on screen ever. But U-Turn she did with Sean Penn. She's got good chemistry with him, and that she's playing like a femme fatale type character. And that, I think, you know, she was an actress who could bring that to the scenes. And I'm not surprised, because seeing McConaughey's tight buns in those slacks in that dance scene, it's like going back and watching JCVD, watching Jean-Claude Van Damme doing all his kind of, you know, buns of steel moments in his 90s movies. So it was a real, you know, got a little bit of a hot flush watching the movie the other night.
Oh, I love it. Because I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it because my husband's here.
Yeah, fine.
I was thinking it. I wasn't going to.
It's just one little pose he certainly does at one point where he's just like really like one leg back, like buns are still in the camera's face. Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah, and that year, I mean, those years of movies, the late 90s, early 2000s, they were all about aesthetics of both the actors, the actresses, the way that it felt made you feel. They wanted it to be aesthetically pleasing. We don't care as much about that now. I think I think we've seen movies kind of move into what's more relatable rather than what looks good.
Like kind of aspirational. I guess we're in the kind of post-Friends. Everybody had the Jennifer Aniston haircut. We're in that era, aren't we? Of like aspiration. Everyone wants to be like those people. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, while we're on that topic, if we can bring San Francisco into the conversation, because I don't know if you've been there, but I've been to San Francisco on holiday once, and it is not like you see in the movies. They're almost like two halves to the city. There's the pretty touristy, looks fantastic in films and pictures kind of area of the city. And then there's another half to the city that we didn't really want to cross the street because we were going to get mugged, literally. And the guidebooks say, do not take your phone out your pocket. It will get stolen out your hand. And I think, you know, we're so used to seeing films do, like you said, the aesthetics, and San Francisco, what a beautiful, beautiful place. But we don't touch on the fact that, hang on, her family probably weren't in the nice part of town, at least for a part of their time in America, and that she's done well to get to that nice part. I don't know. It just, to me now, whenever I see anything in San Francisco, I can't take it just on face value as it is, because I now know, because I've been there and I've seen it for myself, that they're kind of hiding a whole other part of the place from us. And it feels like now, if you did this film or a film in San Francisco, maybe you'd get a little bit more. You wouldn't just get the pretty postcard streets.
Yeah.
So
and that kind of immigrant story would again add depth, would add weight to it, wouldn't it? That sense, maybe the dad should still be in the apartment they had, and she is a really successful businesswoman. You know, she's about to be made partner in this what seems like a mega successful wedding planning business. But for him to be holding on to the apartment that they had when she was growing up, and where his wife lived, who's obviously passed away, and that would be again just be adding some shade and some depth to the movie for sure.
Yeah, it's lacking all that depth.
Yeah, I think I was reading about what the writers really wanted for the story, and they were talking about how, it was just kind of funny. Like, how funny it would be to have a wedding planner whose own love life is in the toilet. Like, that's kind of a funny idea. But actually, for women watching it now, we see this wonderfully successful businesswoman, like you were talking about. Like, she's worked really hard. She's overcome this like hard backstory. And she realizes that her love life is not necessarily, must have in this scenario with her. She could do without that.
Yeah, she's not pursuing love. That's the interesting thing, that whenever anyone asks her to, get into the dating pool, she's like, no, it's not been that long. And they're like, no, it's been ages. And again, it's just an aspect of the story where either you make it deep or you take it out. You either make it work for these characters or you get rid of it and focus on what does work. And I felt like that part of it, again, is interesting, that you say it's almost like it was a one-line premise to say, oh, what if she's a wedding planner but hasn't got her own love life? It's like, yeah, but let's dig deep on that idea rather than it just be what a funny thought.
It's an elevator pitch, isn't it? And it's got no further than that, really. But you look, Pretty Woman, a prostitute who is invited into high society. It does have some things to say. The famous scene when she goes into the shop and the woman sort of turns her nose up at her. It's not particularly deep, but it does have moments that you can still reflect on many years later and say there is some commentary going on there. But I think you're right, Amber. This is kind of filmmaking of the time, isn't it? It is a bit surfacey and it is just a bit froth. We just want to have some fun. We just want characters being frothy and having fun and sparking off each other. And we do get that. But I think it's also fair to look back and say, although we judge this now differently and it has dated really poorly in some places, some of the humour with the Massimo character particularly, but some other like jokes. I mean, that dancing scene, for instance, she accuses him of being gay because he can dance. Maybe that was funny in 2001. I don't know. But there's some humor like that in there. And even when Massimo proposes to her later in the movie, he does his proper proposal. His proposal is all about like, I'll be the man and I'll look after you and I'll put a roof over your head. And I was thinking, what? Like this, she's now a partner in this business. She's running weddings for like high society people. She's got a luscious apartment. She does not need this random dude that's just come over from Italy to worry about putting a roof over her head. Like, again, just fix that line. That is just a line that doesn't need to be there. It's really easy, even on the day, to just say, yeah, this line isn't working considering the other choices we made in the movie. Propose in a slightly different way. Or, as you said, Tim, make it into a point. He is retrograde. He is a man who still thinks that way in a world that isn't like that anymore. And she needs to say, I'm willing to give this a go because of what my dad's told me about his arranged marriage, but I don't need that from you. I need you to be this. Much more interesting.
Weirdly, I think that there's a version of this film that could have worked that she chose him, that she chose Massimo. Yeah. Because her dad is a gentleman. He says, actually, we had an arranged marriage, but I grew to love your mother because she really was wonderful. And you've got the fact that Massimo does remember her mum in ways that, other people don't. People are going to forget about her mum. She's away from where they grew up. So the only person around her that's going to remember her mum soon is Massimo. That actually, that could work. That would actually be a really interesting twist to the story. But this film is not interested in doing a nice twist. We know from the start who's going to end up with whom. There is no chance that anything else is going to happen. But yeah, I just think that you're right, that if you were to rewrite it now and redo it, it would be a completely different film.
Yeah. Can I talk about for a second from the point of view from a woman?
Please.
For a minute.
Please do.
So you mean you don't want me and Tim to do that for you? No?
Yeah. So I'm not in any way really rooting for Massimo at any point, because you're right. It's kind of a silly added character, but that is the only parts of the film that I felt real. I don't want to say depth because it wasn't fully, they didn't go as deep as they could, but that I felt something. And it's because, she didn't have her mother growing up. She didn't really have anybody to teach her how love was. I mean, she even says that to her dad. He asks her about love, and she said, I don't know what that is. I don't know love. I don't know what to do with that.
Mm.
And she doesn't, which is why she's thrown herself into this controlling, business-like person, is because she's never been taught. And it's just a different dynamic with men and women, with feeling and receiving love. It's just different. So I know Massimo was kind of supposed to be this comic relief character, but in my opinion, when he does fully like sit down, and he did his best to make her a meal, which was the saddest Italian pasta meal I've ever made. I just don't think that would have ever really happened for a true Italian man. Like, that was a joke, but you know, he tried, and you could see him act it like that. I actually felt like, from a woman's point of view, that was really sweet and very touching. And you're right, she didn't need someone to come and like be the head of a household and like protect her and do all the classical man things. But I think because he was of that time that she was never connected to because of her mom, she did yearn for that. So I think there was a part of her that a little bit wanted that. Or at least that's what I felt. I don't know.
And I wonder whether also there's an element of sincerity versus insincerity, that there are many characters throughout the film who are insincere, that they say they want to get married and they don't really. They say they love each other and they don't, that they're not fully honest with their feelings. Whereas Massimo is the exact opposite. Even though he sounds like an idiot, and he knows he sounds like an idiot, he is heart on his sleeve from start to end. He says exactly how he feels. And that actually, because of that, he comes across as genuine, as sincere, as likable. Whereas we have a character, and obviously we need to get into McConaughey even more, but with Steve / Eddie, that we can't really trust him. We can't really take what he's saying as sincere or honest or want to root for him, because he's being duplicitous. And I think whereas Massimo is the exact opposite.
Yeah. And I think that I love that as a woman. Seeing that in a man is very rare.
No, it's fair. I mean, he's presented as a complete doofus, isn't he? But on reflection, when you think about, you're right, the things that he says, the choices he makes, right up until the end of the movie, where he's the one who kind of, let's not get married then, really, I guess. He's the guy that says it in the end, because when the dad tries to stop the wedding, she's going to follow through with it. So I think we're left to assume that actually Massimo is the one that says, actually, no, you're in love with Steve Eddie. So, he says, and then he helps them get together. Yeah. So you're right. Like, he is, but I think, you know, I need you two to tell me that, because the presentation of him as a character is just so awful. If I can't think of any other word. I really wanted to find a word which was more descriptive. And again, I don't totally blame the actor. He's been asked to do this. I was watching this with Emma, with my partner, and she was excited because he's a guy from Grey's Anatomy, which is not my world, but she loves Grey's Anatomy. She's on her second. Okay, all right. So she's on her second complete go around in recent years, and was Justin Chambers. I was like, who that? Like, okay. So she was excited to see him, and then he comes on screen, and like, the performance, the gesticulation, the accent is so cringy, isn't it? To the point of, you know, kind of offensive, really. And I don't even mean like dated offensive. I think probably even in 2001, it was probably pretty offensive.
Oh yeah, it's the worst Italian accent. But again, this is one of those things where get away from your first original writing. Maybe you've lost the Italian actor that you were going to have. Okay, well then say that he's second generation. She is. Yeah. She has zero Italian accent. So why not say the same about him? Oh, they grew up together, but their families both moved over to America. The story still works exactly the same. He can speak with a real American accent, and you fixed the whole problem, and he'd probably come across even better.
100%.
They didn't want to make any changes, it feels like. So, it's really odd, that aspect.
Yeah, it is weird.
He was, as you said, Amber, pure comic relief, right? That's all he was meant to be. But you've both really argued, you know, in a strong way that actually he's kind of the heart and soul of the movie, because at the center of Steve, the core is something pretty rotten, really, isn't it? I mean, he is being duplicitous behind his fiance's back. He is manipulating the situations, and to some extent I do feel slightly lesser so, but I do feel that Mary's almost as bad as him as well in some ways. I don't know if you two feel the same. I think Steve is worse, which is a really interesting take for our leading man. But I wasn't really rooting for Mary either, personally.
Yeah, I think she wasn't a very well written character, but I also do understand the control freak aspect that she brought out a lot, and it came out. We liked the vulnerability of the scene where she runs into her ex and then gets drunk. Like, we liked that because we were tired of seeing this front that she had put up so strongly. So, yeah, I mean, it could have definitely been done better.
And that scene, I think, is kind of pivotal to getting her backstory and understanding the character. And that is the moment when she stands up for what is right and says, actually, you are engaged, you need to leave. But I feel like the last 10 minutes of the film, and spoilers, but when they end up together, it's so rushed that it's almost like nobody actually really checks. He said, "No, I didn't marry her." Okay, wait, we can be together. Hurrah. There's no standing on the fact that she feels very upset that someone left her briefly before her wedding, and then to have this love interest who's doing the same to someone else to some degree, she should be running the other way. Yeah. She shouldn't just be wary of him. She should literally be saying, until I see fundamental change in you, I can't be with you. And we do not get that. We get her being very happy to be, to run into his arms, as it were.
Yeah. Go on,
actually, I did read something else about this. So apparently,
I like the hand
originally, oh, go ahead. What?
No, I like you. I was like, I've got my hand up. I've got something.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Raise my hand. I read that the writers actually, as crazy and as wild as what I'm about to say is, it is true. They wanted this to be a trilogy.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And now when he says, "Oh, the last 10 minutes felt rushed," it absolutely did. But I think it's because they thought, this will turn into a trilogy. And it's wild to read about it because they talked about how the next film, obviously we get to see her in her Bridezilla thing. But they said that their plan was to break them up anyway. So it's just, when I factor that into like what their goal was, this film does make more sense. Which
if
is
we got
so
kind
sad.
of the long form,
on the big board, they were planning to break them up anyway. So I don't love it. I didn't love it. It's not my favorite,
but it doesn't mean it can't be defended in the things that it does get right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've already spoken the chemistry and the charisma those two bring, and I think they do a good job. And I agree. I like that scene, and up until that point, I really did feel the same about them both, because it's okay to kind of be feeling a bit broken and a bit put off love and to focus on your career. Of course, all of that is fine, but then to be the other woman and know what that feels like, I think that's not okay. And that is definitely what Mary is doing. I know she's trying to push him away, but she's also not trying that hard, really. But then you're right. That scene, she kind of steps up and he professes his love for her. And she was like, "No, you're engaged. It's not going to happen." That's kind of her one saving moment. I'm not sure Steve has any, does he? Does he have any saving moments? They want it to be the moment when he kind of releases Fran from the engagement.
That, I think, is another one of those missteps of that they make him the one that makes that first move to have that conversation so that we will maybe warm to him for the finale. But actually, really, what would normally happen in a film like this is that we normally root against the person he's already with so that he'll be with the person that we want him to be with. Yeah. But it never makes Fran so unlikable that we actually want to push her away. She's so lukewarm. At most she's indifferent to some of the plans. And I think that that's really odd, that it would have been better to have written a line in I think we were talking about it last night, the fact that he's a pediatrician. Mm-hmm. And when we first meet him, he's so lovable because he saves her, he looks after her. She's surrounded by these adorable children that he is amazingly great with. And what would have been an interesting line would have been maybe Fran deciding she does not want children. And he goes, actually, I love children. I really want children. And they go, okay, then maybe we're not meant to be together. And it may be me being more of her clear decision. And we go, okay, that's a clear break. That makes sense.
I think they tried to give her that line. Not of the kids, but there's a moment where they're walking and she says, oh, he's going to start a foundation. And she's like, oh, is he? And she says, well, he doesn't know it yet, but he will do. Like
she's got plans for him that he doesn't have for himself.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the line you were looking for, but you're right. It was so like nonchalantly delivered and not picked up on that it didn't really land. I don't think.
Yeah. It's another moments of that you've been talking about, Tim, where it's like there's a hint of something, but they don't take it far enough. Like we've got an idea, but then we hit the brakes. We don't push that idea anywhere. Oh, you're right, Amber. I had the same line in my head, but it's just, it's literally that's it, isn't it? As you said it perfectly. One line, move on.
And it never comes back. Like if she'd said, I've set up a foundation in your name and you're going to take it on the day after the wedding. Nope. That would have been it. But yeah, it's forgotten about. So the idea was there, but then abandoned.
It was hard for me to watch. So at the beginning of the film, we enter into this wedding that she's planned and she's trying to talk this girl down. And in that moment, she is a total girl's girl. Like I did love that scene because it was so beautiful seeing another woman pick another woman up, trying to make sure like, hey, like, no, this is what you want. This is what's good for you. And I think you look gorgeous and whatever. Well, then later we see her deliver the exact same line, and that was heartbreaking because it completely broke it.
Because she's about business, not actually about the women.
Which was that really kind of upset me when I watched it because I thought, wow, like that's just a lie she's telling everyone to get the job done.
But again, this is the case of them not wanting to make anyone unlikable. Because obviously, if she'd said anything more substantial and meaningful to Fran, it would look like she was being self-serving, that she's trying to get Fran out the way so she can have Steve. So they have to make her look like she's going to talk her into marrying him, but it doesn't do anyone any favors. Yeah. So this film just keeps not doing its characters any favors. It has an end goal. It has this idea of this fun premise and this end goal that the two of them end up together. And whatever comes between those 2 points is inconsequential almost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the perfect word for it. It's interesting because I wrote down manipulative Mary. Absolutely. It was a real, another like, oh, that's a shame they made that choice. Because I really liked the opening of the movie. I thought that worked really well. I thought we have her as a child playing with her Barbies and planning out a wedding. That's a nice transition to then see her progressing and doing that as a career. The match cut was amazing from the Barbie doll face to this actress who is kind of Barbie doll styled for her wedding. It was such a good shot. And then we have this like one take long shot of Mary going all around the wedding and solving all these problems and troubleshooting. And then the dad's not here, and really good filmmaking. I have to say, I was a bit at this point, we're about 10 minutes in. I was like, whoa, okay, this is pretty good. This is not a film I expected it to be. There's good filmmaking on show. It's got an energy. Jennifer Lopez is bringing it. So that opening was really strong. And then I think what we're all arguing, I think really is then it's kind of, and then this mistake comes in, and then this mistake comes in, and then this mistake comes in. Because there are other points, you know, the Mary getting, the meet cute, the Mary getting trapped is silly, but it's kind of fun. It's like a Final Destination movie. Her heel's trapped in the grate and there's a taxi driver eating an ice cream. I don't know why.
Who comes back later.
He does,
taxi driver later, and I thought that's a nice little touch.
He's got a neck brace, hasn't he? Yeah. And the dumpster's rolling down the hill. I was kind of like, whoa, this is, have I accidentally switched on to Netflix or something and there's a Final Destination movie on? But it's a fun, silly little scene. It makes sense for the kind of movie we're in. So there are these little highlight moments where there's some fun creative decisions or good, like filmmaking creative decisions being made.
Yeah. And I think the first time I saw this film, I was 6 years old. That's when it came out.
Right.
So
Wow, I feel
it was interesting to me to see the things that have changed, like in my perspective of watching it. Like when I was 6, what a dreamy, beautiful romantic comedy. But now, like rewatching it as someone who's found true love, I was not as appreciative.
And here I am siding with Mary because I've also had to plan a wedding with a Texan. So, you know, our perspectives have changed.
Yeah.
Your own true life Matthew McConaughey. It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, it does. Yeah. It does help you reflect, like, of the substance that this wasn't. Like,
it reminded me at times of a movie called Serendipity. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes, I know it well.
A film I have a real soft spot for. I really like that movie. I mean, it helps having John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale as your main characters, but then you have Molly Shannon doing this kind of like over the top character, but in a much more likable way. And it's Jeremy Piven, isn't it? It's like John Cusack's like mate. And again, at the core of that, not great. John Cusack's engaged. His wedding's coming up, and he's racing around trying to find this lost love that he had. Not necessarily a great character trait, you know, to give your main. But there's just things that they do in that movie that help you to understand that these two do have this connection. It means they are supposed to be together. And actually, interestingly, Tim, like you mentioned before, like should we make the fiance like the bad guy as such? She's not quite the bad guy in Serendipity, but they lean into it a bit more there, where it's really clear that they're not right for each other, and it's kind of become a relationship of convenience.
It's the holding them back from the true love, and that's the thing in Serendipity is that, if I'm remembering it correctly, the book, isn't it, that he's always got to find this person. Yeah.
She writes it on a. He writes it in a book, doesn't he? And she writes it on a money and a dollar bill or something, I think. Or the other way around, one or the other, I can't remember. Yeah.
But this is a pre-existing romance. This is something that is love and loss, and we're trying to find it again. Whereas, you know, we've got Eddie, Steve, whatever we want to call him. He meets Mary and immediately goes out on a date with her. And Amber and I are watching it going, you know this is a date. You know she's interested in you romantically, and you are doing nothing to, you know, dampen that expectation. And he completely admits it later on. And it's almost like if he'd been clueless and he really hadn't had an idea, we could be like, oh, he's clueless. But no, he's too smart, so they don't let him, you know, go down that route. He basically says, yeah, I was up for cheating on my fiance. Yeah. Okay, now you've completely ruined the character. Whereas with Serendipity or almost any other film, you go, oh, no, it's not, you know, the barrier, the problem is time, is circumstance. But in this case, he is actively pursuing a new relationship. And so the only motivation for that is he's not thinking with his big boy brain. And that's really sad. And he's better than that. And we know he's better than that because we've had this really nice meet cute, and we've had this really nice introduction to the character. He's good with kids and all the other things that would make you warm to him, but we lose it in the next scene we see him.
I think we could have also seen, you talked about timing a little bit. It just made me think of something that someone once told me a long time ago, was that you always have to have two things to find the one, and it's chemistry and timing. And she brings that out in the film to Massimo. She's like, you know, have you ever felt like you just fell in love with the right one, but it was just the wrong timing? And I thought they could have hit that harder, maybe. And also, why is she going to Massimo when she has this like assistant that is basically her best friend that knows all of these things about her? She should have went to the girl. But again, that comes back to
the
her.
Judy Greer character. Yeah, she just leaves the movie, doesn't she? Completely.
I love her.
And she's on the Molly Shannon side of overacting compared to the Justin Chambers Massimo side. Like she is pushing it a bit too far, maybe, but she has a natural, again, charisma. We've used that word quite a lot tonight, but she does. She's likable as being this kind of over the top character. Yeah, she's a loss to the movie.
Judy Greer's great. She kind of always plays the side character with no love interest. But I think she does it really well. Like she's a great little,
and she's doing it with her own accent, which means that she's not got her hand tied behind her back. She's able to do what she does well. She's the one person in this cast I would have put money on was the original proper casting that they actually wanted, whereas everyone else feels like they've been subbed in, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. I read something interesting about Matthew McConaughey. I've got a bit from Greenlights actually that I'll share in a bit, but that he came up with did you read this as well? He came up with that he wanted the character to be called Steve. So they basically begged him to, when I read the thing, they basically begged him to be in it. And then he sort of turned up. It was kind of his role to say no to. And he turned up and he's like, on the way here, I know this character is going to be called Steve. I feel it. So that is something they did rewrite, it sounds like, that they renamed the character Steve on his behalf. But then it's really interesting reflecting on the fact that several times in the movie, he refers to himself in the third person. So I wonder if that's McConaughey, like kind of improvising. Well, now I'm Steve. Steve likes to do this. But again, moments in the movie where a man that is innately charming really is working hard to not be. Those moments when he's third personing are awful.
I thought that too. Like if I had ever dated someone that referred to themselves in the third person, I would be running so far the other way. That is just so, I don't know, narcissistic.
And Tim was watching the film thinking exactly the same thing.
Oh, well, you married me. I'm stuck with you now.
I mean, I didn't have to refer to myself in the third person because we met on Zoom and I had my name in the screen.
Oh, I love that.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah.
It's that is, considering I've seen him play like a serial killer, a Texas Chainsaw, bank robbers in the Newton Boys. At times, he's misogynistic and unlikable, and that is probably the most unlikable I've seen him be. Is third person Steving all over this place?
Yeah, that was a weird choice. Like you said, I don't know if that was a McConaughey like improv thing to be funny. I don't know what that was, but it was not lovely.
It's like they asked him to be himself and not be himself at the same time. Be yourself for the first couple of scenes. And then be the opposite for the rest. And that shift feels so odd because, I'd seen the film before, so I knew that he was going to be the fiance. And if I hadn't, I would have been way in it at that moment when they meet cute and everything's going well. I would have been like, yep, this is great. This is working. And it still was. Like you said, the first bit of the film is zippy and it works and it feels really good. But because I knew what was coming, because this is the second or more time I've seen it, I thought, oh, okay, I can't root for you. So it feels really odd to have, someone with such charisma and to have found this actor with such charisma and charm and then tell him to be unlikable, but also be likable enough that we still want him to end up with her at the end. You're doing two things at once. You're putting the brakes on and the gas at the same time, and you just can't do it.
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable all the way through.
I think, too, is this just a case of him being thrown into this role that is bad writing? Like, he got thrown in, and it's also badly written.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's like minimal to no prep.
Yeah.
Of a character which at its core is problematic. He's sort of doing the best he can in the and let's face it, it didn't do his career any harm at this point, did it? I mean, this movie did gangbusters when it came out. It made 94.7 million. I think that might be largely the J-Lo factor, but it did very, very well. And we know, that this is the moment, isn't it? We start getting the flood of kind of McConaughey rom-com roles. So I guess that's where we're natural McConaughey charm on one hand, badly uncharming character on the other. But you're right, Tim, again, like make him unlikable from the start and he has to go on an arc and learn to be likable by the end. You can't keep flim-flamming, you can't keep like the pendulum swinging between the two. It's just, it doesn't allow you to buy in as an audience member, does it?
No. He's a gentleman in 1 minute and then the next minute you're like, she told you to walk away and you've come back.
Yeah.
It's constantly fighting against what would work. And it's a strange role for him. I mean, obviously you've seen his whole progression up till this point, but the fact that he must have, we know he wasn't the first choice, but there must have been something about this, or at least getting into this genre, that appealed to him. He must have thought, I know I can do charming. I know I can do rom-com. Someone's offering me a rom-com. I should take it because that is a door I should open for myself. And obviously that works in that respect. But boy, is this a bad audition for the genre of rom-coms for him. Whereas, thankfully, spoiler alert, you're coming to better films in the next couple of weeks that will highlight him doing full charming, full Matthew McConaughey, at which point you go, okay, yeah, this is what you always should have been doing in this genre, but don't always do this genre.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I think maybe at this point, and we will come back to maybe some more things in the movie. I'd quite like to talk about the statue scene. I think that's worth us talking about at some point. But just because of what you said there, Tim, I think it's worth sharing the bit from Green Lights where he writes about it, because there is one key thing that attracts him to the role that he mentions in it. So he does talk. So he does talk about the fact that it'd been a bit of a lean time in terms of success since A Time to Kill, right? He was this megastar, and then he had these films, and they were doing okay, but they weren't the next leap on for his career he was hoping they were going to be. And then he says this: with the strike imminent and Hollywood scrambling to start as many productions as possible before a walkout, I got an above my market value cash offer to play the lead opposite Jennifer Lopez in The Wedding Planner. So, money. I read the script, it looked like fun, the money was generous, and I was ready to work. Shooting started in 2 weeks in downtown Hollywood. I said yes, and Mrs. Hudd and I, that's his dog, made our way to our new address. Rock and roll, ready to go, he says. So, money is why he did this role, which maybe makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's always a point. I mean, here we are. We're making nowhere near any of this money. Yeah. Would I jump at that opportunity? Yeah.
Sure.
If I was not, if we were in the same shoes, needing a filler for money, yeah.
And maybe it's the Spielberg system as well. Spielberg does one film for money, one film that he really wants to do. And, you can understand actors doing the same. Picking a role that is going to do good box office, and then for your next role, being able to put your name to something that otherwise might not have got made. And he definitely was doing that to some degree at this point in his career, because he's starting to be that recognizable name. But it does feel like a bit of a shame for him to have to look back on it in that way as well. Because like we've said, with a few tweaks, this could have been everything he hoped and something more. Yeah.
I think, money and Jennifer Lopez probably was like, yeah, why not? I mean, you guys probably read some of the same stuff, or if you're J-Lo fans, I don't know, but this was the week that this came out the same week the J-Lo album was released. Yeah, so she had a number one movie and a number one album, the first woman ever to do that. I didn't know this till researching, but she is essentially the reason that Google Images exists. Because of people, people spacey searching on Google, they wanted to see images of her in that green Versace dress. So she was the big deal, wasn't she, around this time? So I can see for him, like you said, The last few films haven't been a big success. This is really good money. I'm not going to get a job for a while because people are going out on strike. Yeah, let's do it. And he's in quite I guess transitory stage in terms of his career, but this is the time like when he's talking about Mrs. Hud there, it's because he's living in like a big like Airstream, like I don't know, I would call it a caravan. What would you call it, Amber? What's the version?
Like an RV or an Airstream, yeah.
I suppose, yeah. I think he had it hooked to the back of his car and he was driving around and just living in that, basically going to set.
Fifth wheel, maybe. Yeah.
So he was quite happy, Oh, great! I'll just jump in, drive down, live in this, get some good money. He was just at that kind of stage of his life where things were a bit loose and carefree and fun and frothy. And why not? Why not do a movie like this, as you said as well, right at the top, when he's just done something quite stoic and serious and war and getting really wet and being stressed out the whole time.
Yeah.
Let's go and fancy Jennifer Lopez for a few weeks. All right.
I do have to admire his it's a good old country boy work ethic that he brings, I think, to this. Like he said in his book, rock and roll, ready to roll. Let's do it.
Rather be in work, even if it's not his first choice, than be sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's admirable.
Yeah, I love that about him.
Even if he has to act in a scene with a polystyrene statue that he knocks the knob off.
I mean, you know what? I now know that nail varnish remover with a glue problem.
Sure.
So,
in this documentary about how glue and I mean, maybe it is true. I don't know, but I couldn't help thinking they just stolen that joke from the Goonies.
Yeah. Yes, I know. We just watched that too.
Just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just that scene is another kind of embodiment. I think Massimo is an embodiment of the issues with the comedy, but this scene as well, where like there are some obviously genuine statues there, and they walk up to this really fake looking, like the most fake looking statue. And when you see in like really badly produced TV, normally people are picking up cardboard boxes and they're empty, and it's like, oh, that's heavy. Oh, it's obviously really light. This scene just like screamed kind of fake. The whole thing was just fake, and it really took me out of it.
I do agree with that too. It was quite like jarring that like what did this accomplish?
But it's almost like a scene from another film as well. It's light and breezy, and it's got this like slapstick humor. This
that screwball-y thing. Yeah.
But what's really funny is what you just mentioned. They're the two things I remembered about this film from having seen it years ago on TV. Was that I remembered Justin Chambers as Massimo, and I remembered that scene because I said to Amber the other day, it's the one where they knock a penis off a statue, isn't it? And she went, yeah, it is. That's the two things that are stuck in my head, which is so odd that those are the only things. But maybe it's because they are such weird outliers in this otherwise very vanilla film.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I remembered from this film for so long was the M&Ms.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And they actually did it. That was like an improv a little bit on Matthew McConaughey's part. And they thought the memorable line was going to be, when she hits her head and she's all talking funny. And she said, oh, you smell like grilled cheese. And so they thought that was going to be the line that everybody remembered. But it wasn't. It was the M&Ms. People went crazy for the M&M rule of only eating the chocolate ones, which is totally debunked anyway because all of the coating is white.
It's still a coating. It's not chocolate. Yeah.
But anyway.
But also, it felt weird to me that she took that on as a trait for the end.
Yeah, that was strange.
Because I almost would have done the opposite. He broke my heart. I'm going to eat every brightly colored M&M, and the brown ones can be thrown away. That's what I would have done. If there's ever a time you need E-numbers, it's when you've just called off your wedding.
Even if it's to Massimo. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's funny. I love that you brought this in as if you were the woman. It's cute.
I'm in touch with my feelings.
Yes.
Thanks. That is my one cinema.
I think this was the first time watching for me. I hadn't seen it before. I don't know why, because I have seen all his other rom-com movies. I don't know why this is the one that had escaped me, but it had. But it just feels, we've said it a lot, lots of missed opportunities for this to have probably been even bigger than it was. I think, there's opportunities to have, I think people have watched this and gone, that was all right. But because it's J-Lo, she's popular, it's made that kind of money. It's helped get his rom-com career off the ground. But this probably could have been more memorable. A few different choices here and there. It might be one we're looking back on saying, it is a Pretty Woman. It is a movie which should be well regarded. We could have had a really strong female lead, which is something to aspire to be like, and a male character who is there to service the woman's journey for a change. And, to circle back round to that scene when he's talking to Fran, he leads it by saying, why do you want to marry me? Not like, shall we talk about our relationship and how we've got down this road? And is it right for both of us? It's still about him. He's still like, I'm Steve, third person Steve. Why do you want to marry Steve?
He says that many times.
Yeah.
And, she says, are you really doing this? Are you really doing this to me? Are you really calling off our wedding? And, again, a little tweak. Are we mutually deciding to call off our wedding? Or if she called it off, we can then root for him to get with the person we knew he should really be with. But because they'd make none of those changes, we're still left thinking, he's just broken one woman's heart. Is he really the right guy for our girl? Because above everything else, I've got to say, Jennifer Lopez, she is right for this character, apart from not being Italian. She's actually really good in the role. Yeah. You can see why she wanted to get into rom-coms. I am shocked she's not on the soundtrack. She should have had a better agent who got a...
Just over the end credits, right? We get Love Don't Cost a Thing over the end credits.
Oh, have they added that in afterwards?
Oh, I don't know. It was on my DVD copy.
Oh, okay, because I didn't realize she was on the soundtrack. And we didn't hear that on the... We watched it on Prime.
On Amazon, it didn't have that.
And I didn't get that, but we didn't watch all the credits. But yeah, you just kind of think maybe, for her, this is actually a role for her.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anyone against her would have been the same film. It didn't have to be Matthew McConaughey. Anyone could have been Steve. Anyone could have been Eddie. They would have been Eddie. Whereas for her, it actually does do her good favors. It does show her as the strong, capable wedding planner businesswoman. It does show her as the romantic lead. It does show her as the fun friend, whatever else you want to take. She's actually really good in this. But whoever was going to be cast aside her, it was not doing them any favors.
Is it interesting as well to think back on like who was, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jennifer Love Hewitt? They're not any more Italian. Where's this Italian thing come from? It's so odd, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Oh well,
weird writing choice, but oh well.
Yeah,
it feels like we're getting to the feels like we're running out of steam on this. Like we've made an hour. That's pretty admirable, I think.
Yeah, made an hour on a not so great film, eh?
Yeah,
and we sort of started off at the top, didn't we? Before we even start recording, talking about our kind of respective broad thoughts on the film and kind of star ratings and stuff. And I know kind of star ratings or that kind of reviewing is going a little bit out of fashion, and maybe rightly so. Actually, maybe it's better to have this long form conversation than it is to boil it down to a few words and a star rating. But Tim, you said, I came in pretty hard on my views on Letterboxd on this. I was not a fan.
No.
And I think it's because of that, just that problem right at the core for me of these two characters. You don't root for them. You don't really want them to get together. You do root for Mary much more, and you want her to be a success. But Ambrose, you said the plan was never for them to work out anyway. So what the hell have we sat through 90 minutes, 100 minutes of this movie for anyway? Because we're not getting the happily ever after. We're not getting the Cinderella story. We're not getting Mary what she deserves. She's getting a broken man and a broken marriage, and who knows what kind of future.
Yeah.
Very odd movie.
Yeah. So how many stars did you give it?
1.5, so 3 out of 10.
See, I gave it a 3, but as I point out, if a film is not actively upsetting, offensive, awfully badly made, I normally start at a 3, but I did not click a like. Because when I click like, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Maybe I'd watch it again, even if it's a middle of the road film. Whereas this, I think I've seen it in my life twice now. I now have it embedded in my mind. We've now had this lovely conversation about it, and I've read other articles about it. I'm not going to forget it now. And the only way I'd watch it is if I went to someone's house and they had it on the telly, and I can't tell them to turn off their own TV. You know, it's one of those things where I'm not going to be like, this actually makes me want to leave the room. I'm not invested in it. And that's, I think, the really sad thing about it. I tried to be witty and make a note, but to me, this film feels like comfort food, and it makes me think of that mac and cheese, because it's like, it's faux Italian. We know that for a start. But if it was actually made with real ingredients, it could actually be a lot more substantial and resemble a classic. But it's mac and cheese. And like Amber said, no real Italian gentleman is going to make mac and cheese over just making a very simple, real pasta dish. This film could have been a simpler, better, more, enjoyable and long-lasting rom-com. But actually, they threw all this stuff in that feels artificial and doesn't quite work. And because of that, it's a snack. I'm going to eat it, but I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to be hungry for something better a few minutes later.
That's so cute. So you're saying that instead of a 3-cheese baked ziti of a meal, this is more of the, Kraft mac and cheese.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
You are being pithy. You are being, that is good.
Thanks. Well, there you go. I know what my letterbox review is going to be now.
That's it. Yeah. We'll see that appear later, I hope. Yeah. Speaking of letterbox reviews, look at that. That is, thank you, Tim, for setting that up. What a segue.
Synergy.
Okay. Should we see what some other users think? And it's quite mixed, to be fair. There's a lot of support for Massimo out there, which was really interesting. Obviously, they're not the ones I'm going to read out because he is not being played by Matthew McConaughey. But there seems to be, a lot of love for Massimo's continued journey. People want to see the Massimo sequel much more than they want to see the Mary and Steve sequel.
Yes, I would watch.
They're with you, Tim. Okay, Camilla says, see, I want to like this, but I find it hard to. Emotional cheating? No, thank you. 1 star for J-Lo because she was better than I expected in this and insanely pretty. Another star for rom-com Matthew McConaughey because in the rom-com industry, no one beats him at banter or flirting. He was born for rom-com roles. 0.5 star for every time McConaughey has a scene without the glasses because they made him look like a widowed book club mum. That was awful. Lots of reviews talking about the glasses and McConaughey's dye job in this as well. He actually talks in the book slightly before the bit I read out about how he knows his hair's starting to thin at this point as well, and it's really bothering him. But it doesn't, maybe he's had some work done it there because it doesn't look that thin anymore, does it?
Yeah.
Someone knows where to go and get plastic surgery.
Okay. Wesley, he says, Jennifer Lopez and Matthew McConaughey are the only saving graces in this movie, which negates its attempted sweetness and intriguing premise. Wedding planner inadvertently falls for one of her clients, with uncomfortably mean-spirited humour and ludicrous plotting. Character motivations make little sense, and there's not enough heart or charm to distract us from its nonsense. And I've never seen a modern Hollywood production that feels more racist against Italian people.
2 very accurate reviews. I mean, or at least to me, I felt like those 2 kind of nailed it. I get it.
Can't argue with any of these things. I'd love to know. I wish you had a letterbox review from an Italian.
Sure.
That would be fascinating.
That would be. You're right. I don't know how. I'm sure there are some Italian people on there, but unless they've been written in Massimo's over-exaggerated written word stylings, I guess I would never know.
No. I don't know. I have a friend from Italy. I would be scared to see what she would think. I think she would spurt out some not so nice words.
Whereas on the other hand, my little sister who used to live in Italy, I think she loves this film.
No way.
I have a feeling she does. But also she is Judy Greer's character.
She is remarkably similar to Judy Greer.
We looked at each other 5 minutes into this and Amber went, who she reminds me of? I went, my sister. And she went, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I think she really loves it. Maybe this is the reason she moved to Italy. Oh, well. Sorry.
No. I've got just one more, if that's okay, and this is from Reed. They say, it doesn't get any better than Matthew McConaughey holding a limestone penis in his hand while perusing a statue garden.
If that's what you want from your films, this is the one film you could watch.
This is the one for you, absolutely.
That's a very small Venn diagram, isn't it?
But they got what they wanted, right? Emma's review was that she fell asleep. That is how I'll end it. So yeah, we were sat there Saturday night watching together, our little kind of Saturday date night. Yeah. About 45 minutes in, I was like, okay, there's her review.
I mean, your review was it cost you £1 and that I feel like you overspent.
Yeah,
so
I guess so. Yeah. Never get that. It was worth it for the journey, worth it for this conversation.
Yeah,
we didn't fall asleep through it, but it does feel like a bit of a low point on the journey that you've been on, because like you've seen McConaughey trying to come into his own in his career. So how do you feel this fits in that trajectory and the work that he's been putting in up till this point?
And that's where it's so interesting, isn't it? Because that's kind of been the barometer for me. Has been like, is it something where his performance is so good, you've got to say, what a difference it's made to his career? Mm-hmm. Or has it been, like you said, like A Time to Kill was when we talked about that? That was the moment, right? We all saw it. The moment he becomes that star that he's supposed to be. In theory, this should be that. This should be another A Time to Kill. Mm-hmm. This should be the moment that he becomes the kind of rom-com Matthew McConaughey that we all enjoy watching, even if he doesn't enjoy looking back on that period of his career. But it just doesn't, I think, because the character is so unlikable.
Yeah.
That he manages, that we've all said it, he manages to shine through as a person, but the character is such a douchebag that
yeah. And he's at a point in his career there where he wants to take a rom-com, he wants to work with J-Lo, he wants a good paycheck, so he took this. But I'm really glad that later in his career he found the fortitude to say, you know what, if this isn't a good role for me, I'm not going to take it. And this film would still exist. This is, I'm absolutely certain, as he was third choice, they would have just found someone else.
Yeah.
And it would still be the same film. So, he wouldn't have tanked the film existing or ruined other people's careers. But later on, he realizes, I think, that, he needs to take films that really do suit him, that he can bring something to.
Yeah.
Whereas this, he brought the charm and then was told to put it back away.
Yeah, we're going to get to How to Use a Guy in 10 Days, and I'm sure that's got its dated problems as well. But in my memory, that is fun, and he is completely charming in that. And it is more even-handed, and yeah, that's the role, isn't it? They're the ones. But then you get to the end of that arc, and you get to Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, and that feels like tired from McConaughey. It's like, oh, I have to do this, rather than I'm here by choice, where they're almost like the bookends, aren't they? This is let's try it out. That's oh God, this really is the last one. I'm not doing this anymore. And in the middle, he seems to be all right and been able to be charming and have some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the ones where he gets to be charming.
Yeah. Let's hope
you're about to have the fun era. Let's hope.
Yes. Yeah. The fun era with that, as you said, surprisingly, there's sprinkled in some of these really interesting One For Me movies as well, where he is still doing some good work in some independent features.
Yeah. I'm excited for you to get to Fool's Gold as well, because I think his chemistry with Kate Hudson is immaculate in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And we get to see it again in Fool's Gold. And I think that's just a nice... It's not a super big rom-com. It's more of an adventure film, I guess, but it does have that aspect to it. So that's...
And he's bringing something to the table.
Yeah, so I'm excited for your journey.
He's bringing to that table.
Yeah.
A tan six-pack and luscious locks.
Yep.
Oh, now I'm jealous.
All right, before I let you go, we're talking about what I was thinking about. It's much more important what you two think in terms of where we're at with his career. This is the launch of the rom-coms. So does that make it a classic? Or is the character so bad that it's completist only, or because of, you know, your kind of 3 stars to him? Is it truly somewhere in the middle? What do you both think?
I'm gonna say completist only.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna make it more complicated. I'm so sorry. It's completist only for McConaughey, and it's a classic for J-Lo.
Oh, okay.
It's not his film. It's never been his film, and even with him in it doing all he can do, it's still not. He doesn't make it his own. It's her film. It always was.
That's so true.
So for her, if you like J-Lo films and you like rom-coms, you've got to see this one. It's a classic rom-com. But if we're talking about what you want to have in Matthew McConaughey's obituary, this one should not be mentioned. They should mention his other rom-coms.
Interesting. So what you're saying is, in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, when I get to J-Lo as my subject, you're coming back for the J-Lo version of The Wedding Planner.
I mean, you can try us, but we've given her fair time on this episode, and I think, you know, she's not going to look back on this one in any bad way, but I can understand that he might.
No, this is a great year for her.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, what's going on with you two? So you mentioned, you know, you've got your latest podcast out, so that will been out obviously before we come out, and then what you've got coming up? It will still be
the latest one. We only get to do about one a month, so our focus for the next couple of weeks is family and some time off. But we're working through a few good films, a few good series.
Our latest one was Mr. Burton, and
we got to be really Welsh.
Yeah, very Welsh, which is exciting for us to talk about because we live here in Wales. And an American one, an American classic, G20.
Oh, yeah, that looks like a classic for sure.
Yeah.
And the show Paradise on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Is really caught our attention.
Yeah. And then
so you guys, I'm behind listening because you guys are trendy. You're like, you know, you're on it. You're watching new releases, and I'm bad because I'm not bad. I think I'm fairly normal. I try not to listen or read until I've experienced it myself. So it means I'm like months behind you. So by the time I watch G20, if I ever watch G20, but maybe Mr. Burton, when I come to watch Mr. Burton, then I will let you know. And I'll finally be able to catch up with that episode of yours.
We're not always as up to date as we'd like to be because we have a little gap between seeing something and recording and editing. Whereas your turnaround is far more streamlined than ours has ever become. But yeah, we're hoping in the next few episodes over the next couple of months to try and get some more directors on as well.
Great.
Because we like it when we've got a guest. And it's not something we've been able to do for nearly a year, actually. But we've got some irons in the fire, and we're hoping that some things come through. And so that might lead to some really deep conversations as well. That, you know, from watching frothy films to watching something really deep or talking about it in a deeper way is always the best thing, which is why we love coming on with you, because we can take a film that seems light and pointless, and then we can delve into, you know, the actual depths of it. So we're going to try and do a bit more of that, I think, in the next couple of months.
Yeah, so thank you so much for inviting us back.
Yes, no, I really appreciate you. And then you're going to be back, I think, next time for Bernie, if I'm right.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, Bernie. Oh, that's my jam.
That's literally your region as well.
Yeah, like my town.
So I think I'm just quickly checking my list now. You know, it's a bit down the list, but I think that's the next one. Yeah, so I've got you down for Bernie as the next one. So that'd be fun. Yeah. Again, one of his I haven't seen yet, so I'm really looking forward to watching that.
Good.
It is going to be a step up from this, I'll tell you that.
It'll be a 2-hour episode.
Yeah.
And that's Linklater again, isn't it? So he's re-teaming with him there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Bro. What I'm sure we can all agree upon is that was another classic episode featuring new friends Tim and Amber from This American Wife podcast. Be sure to check out their show and their excellent back catalogue of episodes. Y'all. Thanks once again to everyone that is listening, partaking this journey with me through the reconnaissance. That was The Wedding Planner. Next up in a fortnight, I'm going to be joined once again by the man of many monikers, Super Danny Paul DeMac McGuigan, to discuss Eminem's performance as Troy in Jill Sprecker's 13 Conversations About One Thing for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Cut.